Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Riker, there's been a lot of news coming out about the NBA season, how it's sort of going to be formatted. We haven't really been breaking down much of the finite details that have been coming out because most of them deal with the sort of 8th and 9th seed and how those sort of differentials will be playing out. But there was some stuff that come out that does involve the Toronto Raptors and is pretty interesting. Obviously, the odds to win the NBA championship always is impactful in the league. Sees it, indicates how people are sort of perceiving these different teams entering the playoffs and, well, I guess entering this 8-game season, then the playoffs. And the Toronto Raptors are currently a plus 2,200 to 2,000 to win the championship. The Nuggets and the Sixers are 2,200, but they're behind the teams like the Lakers, the Bucks, the Clippers, the Boston Celtics, the Houston Rockets. We'll throw it up on the screen for you guys to see. But Riker, what are your initial thoughts on these sort of odds for these NBA teams to win the NBA championship?
Well, of course, we got to reflect. It's not, I don't know where you drew this from, but I'm assuming it's not the same as the Vegas odds that predicted that Toronto would be a potential landing spot for Kawhi Leonard. Because if we remember, we broke that, or we covered that when that was all the buzz. And I think we mocked it. We at least joked around saying we don't know where they got this information. But then we broke it down, took it a little bit more seriously. But at the end of the day, I don't think that we believed we'd be the ones to land Kawhi Leonard. So I'm hoping in this case, right, this time that the odds, the bookmakers, that they got it wrong. It's certainly an insult to the Toronto Raptors, the defending champions, to be again put behind our conference rivals, even though we haven't faced the Celtics in the playoffs for a long time. I guess I don't know when the last ever.
I don't think we ever played them.
Well, there you go. But they are certainly one of the most bitter rivalries that the Toronto Raptors have. I'm sure the Celtics themselves maybe wouldn't put the Raptors on the top of their rivalry list. But there's a lot of bad blood, and certainly with the Lakers, the Clippers, they're always going to get the benefit of the doubt. But then again, I don't know whether it's true or not, or where they get this information from. But we're never going to get the benefit of the doubt from American odd makers, even if the Toronto Raptors are the defending champions.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how this is sort of organized. Like, the Toronto Raptors are substantially behind the Celtics right now, and it's pretty strange to look at because the Toronto Raptors are 3 games up on them in the standings. We performed better throughout the year, and even though both teams have dealt with injuries, it seems like the Raptors have been a lot more injured and have had a lot more different lineups having to be thrown out there. The Celtics had Kemba out for a long stretch, but they had a lot of time to adjust. We seem to have someone go down seemingly every day during the regular season, so it's weird when this came out. The Houston Rockets are a whole nother story. We could probably get into that specifically. Obviously, the Bucks, the Lakers, and maybe even the Clippers deserve to be ahead of the Raptors because the Bucks and the Lakers have dominated the conferences. You and I think are pretty confident the Raptors can beat a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, but that's for another video. The Clippers are their own discussion, but yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I really don't get this Celtics pick. The Raptors, like, I don't have much fear of the Boston Celtics. I know they have guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and we weren't sure, and I don't know if it's been put out there definitely yet. I think the news of a 16 seed reseeding thing is just completely on the back burner now. So it's looking like we're going to play the Boston Celtics in the second round. And how do you picture that series going? Because I don't really see how you could favorite the Boston Celtics over the Toronto Raptors if you look at that series objectively.
But, well, listen, the Boston Celtics fans, if the ranking or if the ratings or the Vegas odds came out and they had pegged the Raptors with the better odds than the Celtics, I'm sure the Celtics Digest, if that exists out there, they're saying, how could you objectively say that the Raptors are better than the Celtics? They lost Kawhi Leonard. But I think that the X factor, I don't know, the X factor in a bad way, however you'd want to phrase that, Ben, for them is Gordon Hayward, because I think that they have a very strong team. We've spoke about this before. It matches up pretty well in terms of play style, in terms of coaching, in terms of talent, in terms of youthfulness on the team, a mix of few veterans in there. But I think when they have Gordon Hayward out with significant minutes, usually when he's a starter, they're not as good as when he's not playing. But they still, and maybe it's not proven. I haven't broken down all the stats, but just from the eye test and the games that I watch with the Celtics, Gordon Hayward has struggled. He just hasn't been great. And if he is not great, I think it's a very beatable team for the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think Gordon Hayward's been better this season. I have a few people that watch the Celtics pretty well every game, and they say he's improved. But it's similar to last year in the sense that they have the one ball, and they have a lot of guys that are ball dominant scorers. They don't have that sort of well-roundedness. They still don't have a big. I know their starter Robert Williams has been out for most of the season, but still, he's never been quite the impact player over the course of the year. And just the Toronto Raptors offensively and defensively, well-roundedness, the championship experience. I don't get, I guess maybe objectively saying that it's tough to say that the Raptors are definitely the better team, but to have such a definite margin between the Boston Celtics and the Raptors, I get it if it was within, 200 points, 300 points, however you want to look at it. Maybe some people are higher than Jason Tatum than we are, lower on Siakam, but this is an 800-point spread between the Raptors and the Celtics, which is significant. This is a big difference, and I don't really see, I guess the objectively point was how you can definitely say the Celtics are that much more likely to win a championship than the Raptors. I don't get this spread, Riker.
Well, a lot of it is based on popularity, Ben. That's just a simple fact, and also star power, because we look at the guys that we're depending on to win series, and it comes down to Pascal Siakam needs to be a scorer and a defender in order for the Raptors to stand a chance against these very prolific teams, the 76ers, the Celtics, the Bucks, even the Heat, right? Whomever that the Raptors face against, we're relying on OG Anunoby's defense. We're relying on Pascal Siakam's potential stardom. We're relying on an aging Kyle Lowry to be consistent from three and to do good playmaking. We're relying on Fred VanVleet to be as solid as he was in that Golden State series of last playoffs. So there's a lot of players that I don't know if they really have traction in the overall NBA landscape in terms of popular fandom, whereas guys like Kemba Walker, he was the only guy on that Charlotte team for his entire tenure there, basically, that demanded attention. You have a rising star in Jason Tatum. You have Gordon Hayward, one of the best players on the Utah Jazz during his time there, and all of these guys are in one of the biggest markets in the NBA, so of course they're going to get a lot of that attraction, whether or not they are as good as the Toronto Raptors players. So it makes sense to say, for a person that is on the outside looking in, they're not really a significant fan in either direction, they're going to see the names that are going to appear bigger to them on the Boston Celtics roster.
I guess that's fair enough. And all those factors do go into play with championship odds and that sort of things. But the spread still, I think, is really dramatic. But we can look at some other teams now. The Houston Rockets were also putting ahead of the Toronto Raptors. They're playing in the Western Conference. They're going to have a tougher path to get through the Lakers and the Clippers if they want a chance to even get to the NBA Finals. Nonetheless, whoever comes out of the East, whether it be the Raptors, the Bucks, maybe the Celtics, whoever. So I don't get them as being ahead of us. I think that's a tough one to take in, and we're really kind of close. I guess I get where the Nuggets are. I think they're being slighted in this sort of odds bookkeeping as well, but obviously they don't have any big names besides Jokic, and even only real tight NBA fans follow Jokic in that. And the Sixers are really high considering their sort of their playoff record, and they're a team that we could potentially face in the second round, assuming the seedings don't change, as they be facing the Boston Celtics in the first round right now. Does any of these sort of catch you off guard? Because I think the Sixers being that high, considering the record, maybe the fact that there's going to be no games on the road, or because they have such a difference between their road record and their home record, maybe that plays into this. But the Sixers, considering they're the sixth seed in the Eastern Conference right now, they're about 7.5 games behind us. How do you sort of take that odds making with the Nuggets being there, the Sixers, the Jazz being at that level, the same tier as the Toronto Raptors?
Well, it's a positive thing for the NBA that all of these teams are relatively close together, because for the first time in a long time, it seems like there is some parity between conferences, and then also there's a very deep pool of contenders in both sides, both the East and the West, Ben. It's fathomable that the 76ers could make a run, that the Celtics could make a run, that the Raptors could make a run, that even the Heat could make a run. Obviously, the Bucks being the team that you need to get through in order to get to the championship. Likewise on the other side. I mean, they wouldn't invite 13 or 14 teams back from the West to compete for that final 8th seed if, they weren't all in close contention to make it. So I think that the simple fact of the matter is, Ben, it is anybody's league, but at the end of the day, the teams that have the most separation, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks, I mean, they're basically miles ahead of the rest of the teams in the NBA, except for, we're the dark horse Raptors. And of course, being the Raptors Digest, we're going to say that they have a chance that there shouldn't be as much spread between them. But we know the simple fact of the matter is they are the defending champions, and they do have the ability to defeat any of these teams. But anybody that's rooting for any of these other teams, the Nuggets, the 76ers, they're going to be saying the exact same thing about their own team.
That's fair. But I see where you're coming from. And the Nuggets, they're a team that I think is underrated. I think the Miami Heat are being underrated this with a plus 2,800 spread, plus 28 odds, 2,800 odds, because they're a lot lower. I'd put them in a tier with similar to the Boston Celtics, similar to us. I'd definitely put them ahead of the Sixers. I know the Sixers have that sort of star power, but I guess every home team's going to be rooting for their squad.
Yeah, but playoffs, okay, Ben, playoffs comes down to star power. We all know that.
I think the Heat have some star power on their squad. I know the Sixers do as well, but the Sixers just haven't gelled at all this season, especially when they're playing on the road.
Yeah, but listen, playoff basketball, it has a way. Your team is either getting beat down for an entire series, or most of the games are pretty close, where it comes down to the fourth quarter, comes down to the final couple minutes. And in those, and we bring this up frequently, in those situations, the best star wins the game, right? So that's why you're going to put the 76ers 10 times out of 10 above the Miami Heat in any sort of assessment at who has the better, or the more likelihood, the better odds of getting to the NBA championship.
Okay, I'd like to keep on the Sixers topic just for a little bit, because they're one of the weirdest teams in the NBA. They were going to be weird going to the playoffs, but now that we have this sort of one central location, I think it makes them even more unpredictable. Because if you look at their record, right, they're 29-2 at home. That's a remarkable record. It's the best record in the Eastern Conference. They're one of the best home teams in the NBA, but they're 10-24 on the road. And obviously, this season's going to be played neither at home or neither technically on the road. I guess you want to count them all as road games, but there's no fans going to be there. So how do you think that impacts a team like the Sixers that have such a variance in between their home and road record?
Ben, the 76ers are the worst best team in the NBA. In terms of the talent that they have on the roster and what they're actually capable of achieving with said assembled talent, they are the worst at it in the entire NBA. I mean, they're up there with the Knicks and how bad they are at doing anything with their roster. I mean, like I said once, they have the most potential rookies or upcoming talent. Like, they took everybody over the past 6 to 8 years, it looks like, that was an up-and-coming somebody, right? Their name meant something at one point. They plopped them all into one roster, and they sucked. And the 76ers, although they are a winning record, they're technically a contender. I mean, they're just as bad in a way in terms of they have legitimate, bona fide superstars on their team, and they can still barely scrape together, as you're saying, these road wins. So I think, yeah, it's a good point that you bring up about when you take away any sort of road or home advantage or disadvantage that you might have. What is their potential then in that type of series? And I think it doesn't make any difference, because I think that the reason that they lose is because they have bad mentality. They don't have they have a good coach, but I mean, I think somebody could come in and do a better job, and they just have such mental weakness that I don't really consider them to be a significant factor in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, and obviously we had a tough series against them last year, but I think this is going to play a huge factor, the home and road records, because you look at the Toronto Raptors, they're 23-9 at home, they're 23-9 on the road. They're always level-headed, they're always focused, they're always coming into wherever the setting is, they're focused and ready to go. That shows by the consistency. There's no difference between their home and road record. And we see the Sixers, who, they have a wide variance. The Celtics, they play better at home than on the road, and that's usually the case with most teams. But this new setting, it's going to be completely foreign. I think the fact that road teams struggle is because it's a foreign atmosphere. It's different. The Toronto Raptors seem to play equally as well, whether they're playing in somewhere completely random or they're playing in Scotiabank Arena. So maybe that'll play as a positive going into these playoffs, going into this weird regular season as well, just that focus and the intensity. And you brought up the coaching factor. Obviously, Nick Nurse, he's been one of the leads. The reports have come out that he's leading the way for head coach of the year this year. So there's a lot of things to sort of look at with that. I agree with you. The Sixers are the weirdest team. They have so much talent, but to all the points you brought up, you said that they're the worst best team. They're the worst good team in the league. That's sort of why going back to the odds thing, I was sort of confused to see them so high, but I guess they have that potential with the star thing in the playoffs. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out, Riker.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. And I mean, none of it really matters anyways. The only thing that matters, Ben, is now the Raptors are underrated, and we have the ability to put a lot of our money into betting on them to win the championship. High return. Easy money, Ben. Easy money.
All the YouTube money going straight to the betting odds. Pascal Siakam came out and he says he doesn't care what anyone thinks about the Raptors. We're champions. If you don't accept that, that's what people got to deal with. So I don't know, Riker. Should we invest all that money into the Raptors winning the championship?
Not should we. When will we? I think as soon as possible, Ben. Funny, actually, just before we finish it off, I was watching UFC 250, and somebody put $1 million on Amanda Nunes, who is the defending or the reigning champion in the women's. She's the champion in 2 weight divisions. They put $1 million on her. She was the odds-on favorite by far, but they got $166,000 return. And can you imagine just putting $1 million of your own dollar? You're that confident that the champ is going to win it again, and it did. So that's same situation for us, Ben. We're going to put $1 million on the Raptors, except we'll get better odds.
Donate to our GoFundMe, our mutual fund. Invest your money in the Raptors Digest. We put all our money into betting on the Toronto Raptors. But you guys are the best to make this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. You have any last words, Riker?
So for me, Ben, cheers.